So what styles were hit trends in the 60s?
Oh, what styles? Well, you saw more and more women wearing slacks, number one. I do recall that. Otherwise than that, I don't, the men especially, I didn't see any big style changes in the 60s. Men, well, they used to have a lot of sideburns. They had longer sideburns in their hairstyles. I thought I knew what you was going to ask me, but you blindsided me on that. Otherwise than that, like I said, I don't, you never really saw women wearing, or even young girls for that matter, wearing short shorts or crop tops or anything like that. They still were more conservative in their dress than you see today.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of something that evolved over time.
Yep.
And hairstyles, and you could probably see pictures of Grandpa where there's longer sideburns.
And Dad.
And Dad, yeah. Yeah. He was born with them. So, what else?
How did the people react to having a young president?
That was kind of twofold. Some of the older people were shocked to think that we were going to have a president so young. But more than that, a lot of people had a hard time because he was Catholic.
Oh.
He was also the first Catholic president. Me personally, I felt he was more than capable. I didn't care what his age was because he obviously had experience. And I certainly did not care what his religion was. And neither did Grandpa, because we really felt he was qualified. And he really was, too. I often wonder how the country would have fared differently had he not been killed. And the same with his brother, Robert. He was a very capable man also, and dedicated.
Mm-hmm. That leads on to another question. What was the reaction of the president's death?
What was the reaction of the president, what?
The president's death.
Oh, complete, total shock. Absolute, total shock. I remember I was pregnant with Aunt Teresa when it happened, and I remember we were still renting in our apartment down in Exeter, and I can tell you what chair I was even sitting in when I first heard it over the news. Just total, complete shock to think that something like that could happen in the great United States of America. Yeah. And I don't know that we ever really knew what prompted it. I mean, they have all the speculation and everything, but there may be still files that are sealed that we'll never know. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
So how did Kennedy change America?
Well, I think he gave us more confidence. He certainly had a lot of confidence, and he wasn't one to back down. There was an incident called the Bay of Pigs, and I'm not politically minded enough to be able to recite the whole thing for you, but he really was put on the spot, and we might have had to go to war had it not been for him. He stood his ground, and he did not back down, and the other side backed down. So one of the biggest things during his presidency was the issue of race in the South. Had to believe after the Civil War and the people were set free that it never really got better until the 60s, and a lot of people got hurt and jailed and everything else before it happened. Terrible, terrible thing. It really was. And of course, those of us in Maine, as an example, who had never even seen a colored person up in the central part of Maine, and I never had until I'd been married for quite some time, it was hard to understand that kind of bias that people had. But he was strong on trying to make people accept one another.
Oh.
That's my opinion. I'm sure there were other opinions out there besides mine, obviously, but no, that was my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
He was for equality, fairness and equality. His money never changed him, because he never knew anything about money anyway. His family was money, but it didn't make him feel that he was better than somebody else. And he met several times, I believe, with Martin Luther King Jr. on these issues.
What do you remember about that?
Not an awful lot, except that they did support one another. I think Martin Luther King believed that Kennedy was trying. But you had some governors who were bent on keeping it segregated no matter what.
Cool.
You know, I was a young mommy, so I didn't get into politics a great deal.
So can you tell me what you remember about the Greensboro sit-ins?
The Greensboro incident.
Sit-ins.
Do it again.
The Greensboro sit-ins.
Oh, the sit-in. Only what I heard on the news, really. How the colored people went to this diner to sit in. I think that's the one you're talking about, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. It like I said, it's just so hard for me to fathom the fact that they weren't allowed to be there, that they were determined to be there. Otherwise than that, that's all I know about it. I know some of these incidences that happened in marches, they had to call in the National Guard and everything else because it just got so out of hand.
Oh, really?
Mhm. Like when they were trying to segregate the schools or colleges.
Oh, yeah.
Unbelievable.
So how did the DOT change driving in the late 60s?
How did they change it? I don't know. I didn't know they did.
Oh.
I didn't drive any different, I don't think, than I used to.
Okay. Or how did they change driving roads, highways in the late 60s then?
Well, they improved them. You know, they certainly improved them. When Grandpa and I got married in 1958, the speed limit on the main turnpike was 70 miles an hour then.
Oh.
Which was, I felt, too fast because your tires probably weren't as good a quality as they are today. But, yeah. And then they dropped it down to 55 for a while to try to save gas. But back there, it was 70. I can't remember how long it stayed 70. But I think it was in the late 60s when people started to become more conscientious of saving gas.
Mm-hmm.
They learned at 55 miles an hour you could save so many miles per hour over a given period of time.
Okay. So how did America react to Marilyn Monroe's death?
Again, shock. And of course, she was linked to Kennedy too, which you probably have already heard.
No, I haven't.
Yeah. But there was so much speculation as to how she died. She was a troubled woman, no doubt about it. A beautiful, troubled woman. And so young to die. I guess that was one of the biggest things. People couldn't believe it because she was so young.
What was your reaction to Neil Armstrong walking on the moon?
Oh, gave you goosebumps. Just gave you goosebumps. It was just tremendous. And having gone through Kennedy Space Center since then, over in Cape Canaveral, it made it even more poignant for me. But it was just tremendous. Never thought we'd ever see something like that. I know they predicted it, and that was one of Kennedy's fondest wishes, too, that would happen. Unfortunately, he didn't live long enough to see it.
Do you remember much about the walking on the moon?
Only what we saw on television in the speech that he gave. And then when they came back, the welcome that they gave them. Yeah. I'm trying to remember what year. I think it was 1968, was that?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. It really was quite a feat when you think about it. Quite a feat to even be able to do it today.
How so?
Well, because it is such a monumental thing to do. Everything has to be just so to do it. I'm sure there'll be coming a time when they'll be doing it without even thinking about it, but it's still, space exploration is still quite something when you think about it. It boggles my mind that they're able to do the things that they do. Sometimes I do resent the amount of money that it takes to do it when I think about other things that it could be doing for the country. So you've always got pros and cons. And some of the older people honestly feel every time they go out of space that it changes the tides, which controls your weather.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that there's any scientific fact to support that. But that's what the old timers used to talk about, and one of them was your great-grandmother. She used to say that every time she'd hear about them going up. Oh, they're going to foul up the weather.
So what styles of music and popular bands were there in the 60s?
Jitterbug.
Who?
The jitterbug. They did the twist and they did the jitterbug. And of course, waltzes. They always did waltzes, but for the fast dance, they called it the jitterbug.
Oh.
Ooh. Your grandfather liked it. Took him a long time to do it before he even learned, but once he learned, he decided it was a lot of fun.
Any other popular bands or styles of music?
Of course, Elvis was big. The Beatles were coming on board. You know, the guys from over across the sea, as they say. Neil Diamond, Tom Jones, Tammy Wynette, Johnny Cash, Tijuana Brass. Grandpa and I used to have a lot of fun at the Barrel Ranch. That was a dance hall for many years, just above where Aunt Teresa lives. It isn't there anymore. I guess it burned, but.